Hi friends, welcome to Elevate LA. This is Anupriya Tirumurthy. It's February, the month of love, and I thought I'd share with you guys 10 lessons that I learned from this book, Things I Wish I'd Known Before I Got Married by Gary Chapman. It's basically the idea that being in love is not enough, and there are several other important factors that you may want to consider in order to have that loving, supportive, and mutually beneficial marriage that you always dream of. The author says that the romantic love has two stages. The first stage is where you get captivated by that person and you have all these euphoric feelings where you will be ready to drive 500 miles just to meet that person or fly across the country to just spend quality time together. And in this phase, you would not notice a lot of the differences between the two of you. And this phase usually lasts for about 2 years for most people, and then you gradually enter into the second phase of romantic love that he calls is much more intentional than the first phase. And he says that in order to keep the love alive in the second phase, there he shares 5 secrets that he's called the 5 love languages. The first love language is words of affirmation. These are people who feel the love the most when they receive compliments like, hey, you look beautiful. Hey, I really appreciate that you are washing the clothes for me. Hey, thank you for taking the trash out of the trash can. You are the best. The second type of love language is called the acts of service. For these people, actions speak louder than words, and they think that if you love me, why don't you help me with the household chores? If you love me, why don't you help me clean the car? And for these people, you have to express love in terms of your actions. The third type of love language is called receiving gifts. For these people, they would love a surprise or a gift that they're longing for. So if you provide them those gifts or those surprises, they will feel the most loved. The fourth type of love language is quality of time. These type of people feel loved the most when you give them the undivided time. They would just want to see each other. They would just want to talk to each other and listen to each other and spend that quality time. And that's what makes them feel loved the most. And the fifth type of love language is physical touch. To these people, you need to show love through hugs, cuddles, or the appropriate touch. When I first read this book, I thought I would need all of them. And when I thought deeply, there is one primary language that resonates with me more than the other. And so that is the language you may want to communicate with your partner, and you should know your partner's love language as well so that you can provide them love in the way that they enjoy the most. The second lesson, as the old saying goes, like father, like son, like mother, like daughter is not a myth. And you will acquire certain characteristic traits from your parents. And Gary recommends that you make a list of things that you like about your parents and make a list of things that are negative traits from your parents. And if your spouse has spent considerable amount of time with your parents, then you ask them to write a list of things as well. And then you come together to discuss what changes that you would make so that you don't acquire the negative traits from your parents. Number 3, when we are in the early stages of the relationship, we would think that we have that compatibility to the power max and that we would never argue. But in fact, that's not true. Conflicts are normal in a relationship, and when you indulge yourself in a conflict, you should never let ego chime in and say, hey, this is how we are going to deal with things. Instead, you should discover our way of doing things. And Gary recommends 3 methods to resolve conflicts. Number 1 is meeting in the middle, which is, hey, this is your idea, hey, this is my idea, let's come to a middle ground. And that's one way. And number 2 is meeting on one side, which is, hey, I think that's a great idea, I think that makes much more sense, so let's go with your idea. And that's the other way of dealing with your conflicts. And the third way that Gary recommends is meeting later, which he calls as, I think we should agree to disagree on this, and maybe we set some time later and then talk more about it in detail. Number 4, apology is a sign of strength, and there's no healthy marriage without a sincere apology. Similar to the 5 love languages that we discussed earlier, he talks about those 5 apology languages as well. And number 1 is, these are the type of people who would expect an apology by just expressing your regret. For these type of people, you can just say, I'm sorry. And number 2 are the type of people who would expect an apology by accepting your responsibility. To these type of people, you need to say, I was wrong, I'm sorry. And number 3 are the type of people who would expect an apology by making restitution. To these type of people, you need to make it right. For example, you have promised your wife to take them on a date, but you were not able to make it. So you reschedule it to another day, and then you ask, I'm sorry, can I make it up for a different day? Number 4 are the type of people who would like an apology by asking forgiveness. Hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Will you please forgive me? Number 5 are the type of people who would expect an apology by coming up with a plan of action to correct your wrong behavior or bad behavior. Number 5, forgiveness is not a feeling, where he talks about incidents like slamming of the door or breaking something down. And each time you replay the scene, the hurt remains. And if one of you is going to behave unkindly to the other, then it calls for a genuine apology and a genuine forgiveness if the relationship is to be restored. And he also talks about what a genuine forgiveness means. It does not mean that you are deleting the memory. It does not mean that you are rebuilding the trust. It does not mean that you are having the same harmony as before. It does not mean that you don't have any consequences of the wrongdoing that the person has done. So all of these requires you to put in the effort to resolve the conflicts of the past and work together as a team and find new ways of doing things. Number 6, thanks to Gary, who said toilets are not self-cleaning. When I got married, I was in the opinion that he would do it, and he was in the opinion that I would do it. So we had to talk about our roles and responsibilities in the household. And Gary recommends that you go through an exercise where you write down your roles and responsibilities in your household so that you can divide and conquer. Number 7 is the concept of money. In order to have unity in the relationship and to always have that togetherness, Gary recommends that it's never going to be your money or my money. Instead, having the money together, it's going to be our money. And by that, it means that his or her savings will be our savings and his or her debts will be our debts. Number 8, mutual sex fulfillment is not automatic. It's basically his idea that sex begins in the kitchen and not the bedroom. If you speak a love language in the kitchen, then she's going to be more open when you get to the bedroom. For example, if her love language is acts of service, then washing the dishes or taking out the garbage would be a great turn on for her. And there's more he talks about in this book, which you can read for yourself. Oops. This book. Number 9, that you are marrying into a family. If you think that after your wedding, it's just going to be the two of you, then you got it wrong. Your in-laws are not going to disappear. They are going to be a major part of your family. So you can either make the relationship smooth or make it miserable for you. If you decide to make it smooth, then empathetically listening, treating them with respect, and showing them the kindness that they deserve. If you do all of them, then they're most likely going to give back the same to you. And in case you have a difference of opinion then or a conflict of ideas, then you can negotiate it as a request than as a demand. By doing so, you can still make the relationship seem much more smoother and much more easier. Number 10, personality profoundly influences behavior. You may find yourself with 2 different personality traits. For example, one might be a cleanliness freak and the other might be a messy person. Or one might be talking less while the other could be, can you just talk to the point? And if you guys find yourself in such personality differences, then you may want to communicate with each other so that a satisfactory solution could be achieved and both of you can be happy. that was a brief summary of the book. If you'd like to know more in detail about finding ways to working together as a team, then I would recommend you to go ahead and read this book, because they have so many different examples on working together as a team which you can learn from. And before we close, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and share. See you soon. Take care.